Hi guys, you're about to watch the free podcast of the Young Turks, fun for everybody. Now, you understand that there's only two of our segments. We do a live 2-hour show every day, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
And if you want to hear the entire show, all you have to do is become a member. Sign up by going to TYT-10.28.14.
You can go under member options to become a member, and when you do that, it's totally convenient. You can either stream or download the show, audio or video. Plus, you get more of our network shows. There's no ads whatsoever, and you help support the show. So, TYTnetwork.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome to the first hour of the Young Turks, a big Tuesday panel. As we told you yesterday, Cenk Uygur is out until Thursday, but I think the show is in pretty good hands, namely these hands, Jimmy Dore and Anna Kasparian, who are joining me for the first hour. So we're going to have an awesome first hour, and then for the second hour, I'm going to be stepping out, and the lovely and talented Gina Grad is going to be stepping in. Ooh, that should be fun. So why don't we start things off with a little bit of climate change, something we haven't talked about too much on the show recently, but still important. Let's talk about it. John Coleman is one of the co-founders of the Weather Channel, a former meteorologist for a number of years, decades in fact. So he's obviously very worried about the climate. But what he's not worried about is climate change. Listen to his appearance on Fox News.
Man-made global climate change is a myth. How can you say that?
Well, it's very easy, but thank you for having me on your program. You know, a climate skeptic can rarely get on TV ever since Al Gore made it a plank of the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. And they say you're Looney Tunes if you don't believe as he does.
You bet. And I've been in TV news organizations now for 60 years, and I only met 2 Republicans the whole time, and they were both hiding in the closet. I mean, this is a tough go for people who don't believe in climate change.
So John Coleman spends a lot of time in closets with Republicans. Anyway, sorry, needlessly throwing that in there. So we've got more for you, which we'll get to in just a second. I liked that TV is a plank of the Democratic Party, not MSNBC, but TV itself. And also that Megyn Kelly starts off by saying, how can you say that it's a hoax? So she's admitting that it is real, but then she turns around and says, but they call you Looney Tunes if you say that.
Right.
First of all, you just sort of said he was Looney Tunes for saying that. So which is it?
So she asks him, how can you say that? And he doesn't give her an answer.
No.
He just says, Al Gore's a jerk.
Exactly.
How can you say that? I don't know if you know Al Gore. That's how I can say it. That's it. That's their whole argument. It's his whole argument right now.
Al Gore's
right now,
a jerk,
that's his
and there's
argument.
no Republicans on TV.
And there's no Republicans on TV except, I don't know, I was watching MSNBC the other day, and Chris Matthews admitted he voted for George Bush. So even on MSNBC, you can't get away from right-wingers, okay? They're everywhere. How about Jonathan Karl? How about the guy...
Scarborough.
How about Joe Scarborough? Yeah, just come on. You have the #1 news network on cable is all Republicans, okay? Yeah. So again, it's just, I love it when white conservatives come on and complain about how they're the minority somehow in America because, A, it makes them the victim. Like when they paint them, rich white guys are the victim in America. Ugh.
Hard to be a honky in America.
Are you shitting me? Ugh. Okay, sorry. That's the thing. So John Coleman has established his bona fides. He's a rich, white conservative in America who is also a victim. Okay? Yeah. He's also the put upon. He's the oppressed in America. Okay, here we go.
So one really quick thing I want to add to that, though, is what I'm trying to understand is why he refuses to believe the science and why he's willfully ignorant on this topic, right? So there are politicians who will deny that climate change is man-made, but they do so because there are financial backers, people like the Koch brothers, that are funding them to make sure that we don't do anything to change our habits to basically save the environment, right? So we don't cut back on coal or drilling for oil or any of the other stuff that's basically destroying our environment right now. But I don't understand what his incentive is here, right? Is it because he's like a few years away from no longer existing, so he doesn't want to change his habits, and he's like, nah, stop bothering me? I don't Do you understand that your children, your grandchildren, people are going to start seeing the ramifications of what we're doing to the environment? We're already seeing the ramifications.
Exactly.
That man and Fox News is dangerous, okay?
Yeah.
The fact that we are the only country that refuses to say, yes, climate change is man-made is absolutely ridiculous. It makes us look like clowns.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point that we have science on our side. He's not, in his first clip, as Jimmy said, he's not really describing what he thinks the science says. So we've got a slightly longer clip. And by the way, Jared Jackson included me into check out the totally gratuitous Megyn Kelly leg shot as John Coleman explains the science of why it's a myth.
Well, it's very difficult for anybody to be against it because the media has told the nation over and over again, day after day, for 20 years, that the oceans are rising, the polar bears are dying, the sea, the ice is melting, that storms are going to sweep the earth, and that we're all going to die of a heat wave. I mean, this is an incredible bad science.
But let's get specific, because you talk about how the efforts to prove the theory that carbon dioxide is a significant greenhouse gas and that it's causing significant warming have failed, and yet the data say that carbon dioxide was proven to be a greenhouse gas in the 1957 paper by Roger Revelle. The EPA says it's a greenhouse gas. The scientific community has accepted that it's a greenhouse gas, and that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has gone up since 1958.
Well, there are 9,000 PhDs and 31 scientists who have signed a petition that says it is not a significant greenhouse gas. Oh, it's a teeny, itsy-bitsy greenhouse gas, but it's not in any way significant. And we are sure of it. It's not like something I made up or just thought of.
So I love how he ended the sentence. I also like that of the 9,000 PhDs, only 31 are scientists, which seems like a low percentage. What are the rest of them doing with their time?
I like how he says, well, it's not like this is something I just made up. I guess everybody else is making up climate change, though, but everyone else is making it up. The world's fucked up. John Coleman's right. And by the way, John Coleman used to be my weatherman when I was a little kid growing up in Chicago, and he was the best weatherman.
Was he?
Oh, he was the reason why everybody watched that show. He had a lot of personality. He used to make up his own words, and he's still doing it. He's still doing it. I like how he says, "This is the what did he say? This is the bad science." That's not even like, is science your dog and you're mad at it? Bad science.
But also another part of it that I liked, I of course paid very close attention to Megyn Kelly's legs after you mentioned that they gratuitously went to it. Yeah. But notice the information she was giving the audience when they decided to cut to that shot. She was citing scientific evidence indicating that climate change does exist, it is man-made, and while they're doing that, they're like, wait, this is information we don't want them paying attention to. Wide shot of her legs. I love it.
Yeah. So cut to the leg, she's talking science. Yeah, I don't know why it would be on their wrist. Yeah, obviously ridiculous. By the way, John Coleman does have a journalism degree from the University of Illinois that he got in the late 1890s. He does not, however, have any sort of scientific degree. He has no climate science training, of course. This has been a criticism that's been launched against him for years now because he's been a climate denier for a number of years. He has had no interest in trying to pursue like advanced degrees or anything like that. He hasn't conducted any research. He's not interested in the research. He's just interested in being on TV and spouting off. But
she's asking what's in it for this guy. That was your initial question.
I don't understand what his incentives
are. So two things are. It's got to be three. It could be three things. One, he's getting money from Koch brothers.
It's possible.
Right.
Two, the worse the climate gets, the more crazy storms we have, the higher ratings for the Weather Channel.
That's not a bad point.
That's actually really good. I like
diabolical.
Right.
Well, what does he do? Either it's either that or he's a certifiable moron.
Right.
There's a chance.
There you go. Who founded the Weather Channel? The guy who founded the Weather Channel doesn't believe in science. That is amazing, right? That is, and he talk about, I don't know. I think Megyn Kelly's doing her part to heat up the global climate. If you're just saying.
Okay, so why don't we close out? We've got one more video from him. This time he's going to go back to the polar bears.
Well, I would like to announce tonight to people who are friends of Al Gore's that, whoops, he got that one wrong. The Antarctic ice cap is at an all-time record high in both coverage and thickness, and the Arctic ice cap at the North Pole is at the highest it has been in several years. It's in its so-called normal range since we got satellite observations that could measure it. So not only is the ice not melting, more polar bears are alive and happy today than we've had in 100 years. life is good, Miss Kelly. I got to tell you, life is good.
How do you just allow him to sit there and just make things up? Like, either make things up or cherry pick. I mean, we are literally destroying the natural habitat of polar bears, which means that they have no place to live, right?
Life is good.
Life is good, Miss, which show am I on again?
Miss Kelly.
So Palin, I just want to say.
So he brings up that thing about the, and a lot of dummies on Facebook will also do this. They'll bring up this. There's more ice at the Antarctica right now than that, blah, 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 blah. It's not the right kind of ice. It's the kind of ice that forms at the surface. What they really need is the old kind of ice, which is cracking off and going away. It's the deep kind of ice. Like, again, I'm not a scientist, but I trust science, right? And I know it's not a conspiracy. And so when they cherry pick stupid facts like that, and he's not a scientist, and there's more. So you need to know that when he's saying that he's twisting and perverting little pieces of information. He's perverting that information. He's not actually making you more informed. He's misinforming you because he's twisting it.
It's weird to find that on Fox News, though.
It is weird.
Yeah, they're mixing
Especially,
it up.
And then a blonde lady would let that go right past her like that.
Yeah. So she gets 1 point for starting off the segment by saying, "How can you say that?" and then allowing him to unchallenged say ridiculous things. She loses all the rest of her points.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to Sarah Palin.
I bet she gets it right.
Probably not. Sarah Palin surprisingly actually appears to believe in the reality of climate change, but with an important caveat. She doesn't think that humanity or anything it does has anything to do with that. Let's give her a chance to defend herself.
We can't predict the weather accurately next month, but we're supposed to believe these experts can predict exactly what the weather patterns will be in 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 years from now. Right. Look, I'm not a denier. I don't doubt that climate change exists. I live in an Arctic state. As governor traveling around the coastline, especially up in the Arctic, you can see changes based on the cyclical pattern of climate and weather. We're always changing. We can see the effects of changing weather patterns, not only on the coastline, elsewhere on land, but no one has proven that these changes are caused by anything done by human beings via greenhouse gases. There's no convincing scientific evidence for man-made climate change. The climate has always been changing.
Yeah, but it doesn't change a shit ton in 8 years or in 20 years. That you can't. Her analogy that because it's hard to predict the weather, we can't look at changes in climate. First of all, weather and climate are entirely different things. But that would be like saying that because one person dies of Ebola, how can I trust anything you say about disease? Really? Yep. That's ridiculous. One specific case of something that's unrelated to it does not mean that we can't do core samples of ice from the Arctic or the Antarctic, that we can't track down CO2 levels that have been trapped in that going back hundreds of thousands of years, and we can show definitively that it is not a natural cycle. This is distinct and different.
Now, can you do me a favor?
Yes.
Could you tell me, Jimmy, there's a difference between climate and weather.
Jimmy, it's really impossible to tell what the weather is going to be like a month from now, much less 100 years from now. So it's really part of the cyclical cycle. I am a little impressed that she said cyclical.
She said cyclical.
That was good pronunciation.
But she was thinking of a bike when she said that. She wasn't thinking of this pattern of the weather.
Plus, I'm pretty sure she had cue cards, and it only said cyclical on it. As a reminder. By the way, I love that she's been doing this thing, her video channel, for a while now, and her strategy to appear professional is to look like deer in the headlights. Like, she looked horrified there.
Yeah, she did.
Anyway.
Probably because she knew she had to read the word cyclical, and she was worried she might mess it up.
Well, they just took pop off the front of it so she could read it. Pop cyclical. Anyway, but every time I see her now, and she starts talking, it sounds like someone doing a sketch of her.
Yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
she's always so stupid. She's always so ridiculous. It's funny.
Jimmy, I feel like this is just part of the lamestream media. Instead of focusing on my well-researched message, you're just attacking me for being a woman.
I like how they just. It's funny too. Like the people who are climate change deniers, they just spew out easily already debunked points.
I know.
But they always come up with new easily debunked points, like John Coleman did in that last segment with the Antarctic ice. And she comes up with you can't tell me what the weather's going to be like in 1,000. That's not what we're doing.
No, and here's another thing that drives me crazy, right? So there are two different camps, okay? Camp number one is 97% of esteemed scientists that have done very credible scientific research into the issue of climate change. They all agree climate change not only exists, it's man-made, okay? And then the rest of the scientists, that's camp two. Those are the individuals that are pseudoscientists that are being funded by the Koch brothers. They're literally getting paid to lie to the public and say that climate change does not exist or that it's not man-made, right? So for her to stand there like a deer in the headlights and make an argument that there's no sound scientific evidence indicating that climate change exists is so utterly ridiculous. And all you can really do is look at her and laugh at her and make fun of her. But in reality, there's a serious point to take away from all of this. It's assholes like the Koch brothers. It's morons like Sarah Palin and all the other Republicans that deny climate change, that's literally going to lead to the destruction of this planet, okay? So the fact that we're just going to continue pretending as though this is not a big issue scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. So you guys were talking about the easily debunked points that she was throwing out there. She also has a new one, or at least sort of new, coming from her. Let's listen to this next clip.
Climate change is to this century what eugenics was to the last century. It's hysteria, and a lot of it's junk science. And when it's as discredited as eugenics, you know, a lot of people are going to look very foolish and heartless. Why heartless? Because this global warming, climate change hysteria hurts the poorest among us. We hear all the time about how liberals supposedly care more for the poor than conservatives do. But for the sake of climate change, liberals hold back the poorest parts of the world from the kind of development that we have in America. Let's choose health and prosperity for all the world's citizens, not just the latte liberals looking for a cause.
Yeah, nothing says healthy like breathing in all that smog. I really like that.
Yeah, I trust Sarah Palin that I think she does know as much about climate change as she does about eugenics. I trust her on that front. But of course the ridiculous thing is that the climate change hysteria is not what's harming poor people. Climate change is what's harming poor people as it destroys their agriculture and leads to civil conflicts that is already killing many of them in various parts of the globe.
Right now. I mean, what's happening in the Middle East is a direct result of climate change, what's caused a drought in Syria. And then the farmers came in from the countryside. There's got no water. There's no food. They're looking for stuff. Assad overreaches. He shoots them. We got a civil war. And guess what? We're back bombing in the Middle East. So this is directly tied to climate change. And, you know, it's people like Chuck Todd, David Gregory, George Snuffleupagus. They'll bring people on like Sarah Palin or Senator Blackburn from Tennessee. And they'll pretend like there's still a debate. They'll bring on Bill Nye the Science Guy. He's got science right in his name.
Exactly.
Got science right in his name. Yeah. And then they'll have, on the other side, this literally happened on when David Gregory, one of the last weeks, he was on. And then they brought on Senator Blackburn, that woman from Tennessee. And she was the science denier. Right. And they had a science guy. And hey, well, there's the debate. We just gave you the debate.
But you know what? I actually don't mind that. Because when you have someone like Bill Nye debating a climate science denier, like, let's expose their stupidity. Right? I mean, at least you're creating a platform where that kind of debate can take place. And look, some made the argument that Bill Nye debating a creationist was stupid. I actually thought that was good because exposing stupidity is what the media should do, right? But I also don't like when anchors or journalists want to seem objective, and in doing so, they're just neutral. Don't be neutral. Do your job. Objectivity doesn't mean you have to be neutral, okay? It means that you point out who is freaking lying in the debate.
Exactly.
So if that didn't take place, then I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that never takes place. They always are neutral, and they make the mistake of being neutral instead of objective. You can be objective and still say science is real.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll be on firm ground there. And finally, Sarah Palin posted sort of a similar idea on her Facebook page, but I want to read it because I think it is a perfect example of both everything that conservatives love about her and everything that liberals hate about her. She says, "In the meantime, don't buy into the global warming con simply because it's hip with celebrities and limousine liberals who consume more fuel and emit more emissions, bebopping around in their private jets and multiple mansions than the rest of us ever will."
Does this woman really want to talk to us about luxury?
private jets and limousines. I think she does know about those as well.
Yeah, like the same person who got in trouble during the 2008 elections because her suits cost more than most cars do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that she flew to Fox News coach Southwest, probably not. And we also know, by the way, that she does use limousines. She was using a limousine the night that her entire family got into an Alaskan backyard redneck brawl. Then they piled into their limousine and they drove away.
You know what else people who are liberals use? They also use medicine. They also use roads and bridges. I mean, just because a liberal uses it, it's automatically discredited. They also use books.
Exactly.
They also use books.
Those are suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so those were two crazies who don't believe in the truth of climate change. We do have a little bit of good news for the election, at least. Environmental activist group Next Gen Climate PAC has a new ad in advance of the upcoming midterm elections that's attempting to put a face to the movement that is currently jeopardizing our climate by denying climate change. Let's watch that and then do some commentary.
They told us the world was flat and insisted it was the center of the universe. They ignored pollution, said that cigarettes were harmless, that leaded gas was safe, and there was nothing wrong with CFCs. Now they tell us climate change is a hoax. Some powerful people want to hold us back, but the truth is undeniable. This is a fight we will win.
Next Gen Climate Action Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so here's the problem with that commercial. It doesn't tell me how it's going to affect me. It doesn't make me want to do anything. It's like, oh, there's this issue that rich people are fighting about. Who gives a fuck? Tell me how it affects me right now. And how it affects you right now is that your tax dollars are going for bombs to land in the Middle East right now. And we're going to stay there forever. And that's how climate change is affecting you right now. That's how it's affecting you.
Yeah, I agree. The ad, although they have great intentions, was not that effective
at all.
At all.
I couldn't care less about it.
It used some powerful language in the beginning when they compared it to people who thought that the earth was flat and tobacco companies saying that cigarettes are healthy. Like, okay, it's good to make those comparisons, but you're right. You have to find a way to connect it to people on an individual level, right? On a personal level.
They need a Willie Horton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They need something like that that makes you have an emotional reaction,
right?
And makes you like a call to action, and that's not it.
But I will go ahead.
It's intended to express. I mean, there might well be that they have a longer version of the ad. Generally, these ads will have multiple versions depending on the ad buy. But I think it's intended to portray one idea. The people who are saying it's a hoax are backwards. They're yokels, just like all these other yokels that you saw as you were growing up who were wrong about cigarettes, who were wrong about all that stuff. I mean, I think that other ads can get into, as you say, and I think it would make great sense to show the sort of human cost of climate change. But I think that fighting back against the conservatives who constantly say scientists are lying to you, it's a big hoax, they're making money off of it, to do a bit of that back at them, I think is not a bad call too.
You got to punch them in the mouth, right? Like you have to do what Republicans are really successful at doing. They are masters at marketing, whereas progressive organizations and democratic organizations seem to be a little weaker in their messaging. But I will say this, if that doesn't depress you enough, right? Really interesting numbers in this article about the organization. It's called Next Gen, right? So Next Gen Climate PAC actually donated over $50 million in both state level and congressional races for the midterm elections, right? So you're like, whoa, $50 million. All right, well, if we have money in politics, let's at least try to use it in our favor. Yeah. Well, let's compare it to the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers could spend between $250 and $290 million this year in the midterm elections. I did not know we had a graphic for that. Okay. I apologize.
No, it's totally fine. And you presented it much better than I would have. Yeah, that's amazing. But I'm actually dismayed by both of them. So this group, Next Gen Climate, is being mainly funded by Tom Steyer, who's a Democratic billionaire. He gives tons of money. He's the single biggest spender in this election. And so, look, if the Koch brothers are giving as much money as they are, and they are, and it's terrible, I guess we have to fight back under the system that exists. But I don't want billionaires on either side single-handedly swaying the election.
No, so, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have this issue of money in politics. Wolf-pac.com. Okay?
Yes,
exactly. But under the current system that we have now, if we can use it to our advantage, fine, let's use it to our advantage. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, the point that I'm trying to make is, we don't even come close when it comes to multi-billionaires like the Koch brothers. They control our entire political process. So going out there there and voting is important, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make that much of a difference when you consider how much money influences the actions of these politicians.
Yeah. So why can't they find a clip of, like a bunch of clips of people who were in the back pocket of the tobacco industry back when they were still trying to, say tobacco didn't kill you? And remember, they were saying, well, the science isn't in. I remember I was watching a 60 Minutes thing as a kid and they had a spokesperson come on 60 Minutes to talk about how there's no conclusive proof that chewing tobacco causes oral cancer. The science isn't in. It's not there. So why don't they have those? Like, if they had 10 of those clips and then showed 10 of these morons talking about climate change, the science isn't clear, this is bad, and just do that, show that they're. Don't say they're doing the same thing. Show how they're doing it.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I was an advertising major for no reason.
Were you really?
Yes, I was. I got my degree in.
I don't see why we couldn't put that together. Jared, can you get on that, please?
I need some.
In time for the election, though, it's important, as I say.
I need an intern.
Exactly.
To do that, right? And then I would also need a guy to help me or something.
Yeah. No, I think that would be awesome. Of course, I mean, the idea is that something like that would get people to be interested enough to actually want to learn about the science, because simply drawing the parallel by itself doesn't prove anything, but it does at least establish a pattern that there's always more money, on the business end. There's always more money in attacking a country than in trying to get peace. There's always more money in destroying the environment than in protecting the environment, which is unfortunate. But we should make that, put it on the internet.
I think so. I had a major in advertising and a minor in my dorm room. Listen, the point is...
Oh, my goodness.
I like that one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's my kind of humor. So on that, we are going to go to our first break. If you haven't already, be sure to tweet us at hashtag TYT Live. When we come back from this break, we'll read some of them. Love to hear what you guys have to say. See you in a few.
That was a segment from hour one of the show.
Now for the better hour, the second hour.
Drums. You can get the whole show on TYTnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Young Turks. Anna Kasparian, Jimmy Dore, and Gina Grad joins us.
Hey!
For the second hour of the Young Turks. John has left this part of the building.
I always tap him out.
Yeah.
I never do the show with him. We tap out.
Yeah. John, I don't know why John doesn't... Anyway.
I don't think that, but I don't think that's the saying.
Yeah.
Elvis has left this part of the building. It's got to be the whole building.
I know, but I'm having fun.
I think it's funny. I'm glad.
I'm doing my own thing.
I like it. I'm glad you did it. It gave me a chance to make a joke.
I was watching the monitor, and I couldn't hear any of the sound, but I saw a gigantic fail sign in front of John's face.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed that.
It was fun.
It was great.
It was pretty fun.
Probably the highlight of the show so far. All right, let's create some more highlights. We're starting off with some police stories, right? So I know that Jimmy's going to enjoy these.
Put a pot of coffee on.
Yeah. All right. Oftentimes when we report on police doing bad things, it's usually police brutality or police using excessive force. But what about police officers that do pervy things when they're on duty? Well, Sean Harrington is no exception to that. He is a CHP officer in California, and apparently he got caught sending himself risque photos of a woman that he stopped during a DUI. Now, this is a story that we did earlier this month, but now there's an update to this story. So let me tell you the background information, and then I'll tell you the newest developments, which are absolutely disastrous. So one day, Sean Harrington pulls over a woman who had a blood alcohol level of 3 times the legal limit, okay? Now, while he pulls her over, he asks for her phone, which I don't understand why he needed to do that. He then asks for her password, and she obliges, she gives it to him. And then he proceeds to go through her phone, and he sees a few risque photos, including one where she's wearing a bikini. Well, he sends himself that photo along with others.
He sends it to his own phone.
He sent it to his own phone, and then he deleted the text messages from her phone so she would never find out. Well, little did he know that she actually linked her iPhone to her iPad and also to the cloud, which meant that she figured out that her photos were sent to a really weird phone number. So she investigated it herself, and then she found out that, hey, this officer sent these pictures to himself, right? Now, her DUI charge got dismissed as a result of this, but now in court documents, Sean Harrington is alleging that he's not an isolated case. Apparently, this is something that is true of many, many police officers within California. They're part of this game where they're exchanging risque photos of women that they're pulling over. Okay, so let me give you some more details. The California Highway Patrol officer accused of stealing nude photos from a DUI suspect's phone told investigators that he and his fellow officers have been trading such images for years in a practice that stretches from its Los Angeles office to his own Dublin station. So when he sent the pictures of the woman to his colleagues, okay, apparently this is the exchange that occurred. One person wrote to him, "No fucking nudes," Officer Robert Hazelwood allegedly replied. Officer Dion Simons received the bikini photo too. "Nice," he allegedly replied. "Ha ha ha," Harrington told him. "Just rerun a favor down the road, buddy."
Well, the good news is that, you know, this came to light, and I'm sure these guys are going to be punished severely with, like, some time off with pay.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably get some time off with pay, maybe even a promotion, because that's how we penalize the police these days. It says at the last line of the story, it says, similar isolated incidents have popped up across the nation. None of these cases found resulted in criminal charges for the accused cops.
Yeah.
No shit. You mean the cops investigated the other cops and they found them to be doing this criminal shit and decided not to press charges? That is such a shockaroonie.
But on the other hand, nothing says brotherhood like going, look, it's not just me, it's literally everyone I know.
Yeah.
So I've said this before on the show. I know cops, right? I've said this before. Like my whole life I've been surrounded by cops, a lot of cops in my family, and I've said this before, but every cop I know is a one-half turn of the screw away from being a criminal, and most of them already are. Well, this guy just admits they're all felons, because that's a felony when you take someone's private pictures and you text them for personal reasons like you did. He has the power of the state to stop you, search you, go through your private shit, and then he does what he did. That's called a felony. He says we all do it. They're all criminals. They're all felons.
And the thing that scares me the most is the fact that this has happened for such a long time. He says that it's happened for years. It continues to happen. There are so many police officers that are involved in this. And you're right, Jimmy. Cases like this have occurred in other states. But one of the reasons why they're never charged criminally for this is because oftentimes the district attorney or other state officials will do the investigation. But they have an incentive to look out for the cops because a lot of times they need the cops to testify in a lot of these cases, right? So it's like, I don't know, let's brush this under the rug. What you really need is a federal investigation in cases like this, because this is beyond an abuse of power. I mean, we already have a big enough issue with police brutality, using excessive force, beating people up, killing people for things as stupid as selling untaxed cigarettes, which is what happened in New York, right? But now, all of a sudden, it's okay for cops to also go through your phone, find risque photos, send it to themselves, and then perv out like that? I mean, their behavior is...
Like, that's commonplace. That doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, like, oh, whoopsie daisy, we caught this guy.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, the
and
guy...
he admitted it. He said it's all of us.
And the guy who wrote this story is pretty, I like the way he writes, because he said, well, immediately that guy he texted the picture to, that other cop, he immediately reported it to his senior officer, and they arrested that cop and charged him with a felony. Oh, no, of course that's not what he did. He went the opposite way. Hey, send me some nude pictures. So, you know, this whole thing about, it's just part of just a few bad apples. No, this is a culture of criminals who put on a badge, all right?
So let me give you some more details on some of the instances where he sent himself these photos, okay? This is graphic number 5, okay? Several of the owners of these photos were DUI suspects, all right? So they're obviously in a vulnerable situation because they're about to get their ass handed to them for driving drunk.
Right.
One was hospitalized when Harrington took bikini photos from her phone, and another gave permission to search her device after a DUI arrest, which was apparently interpreted as a green light for shady behavior. So think about that for a second. One person is hospitalized, and the only thing that's going through this man's mind is, how do I get access to her phone, and how do I send these naked pictures or semi-naked pictures to myself?
Yeah.
Because I want to be part of this stupid game.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, first of all, don't you have the internet? I mean, you're going all this trouble to look at someone in bikinis. I know a way you can get it cheaper and faster. Right there, it's a click away, and the models are happy to be there.
It's a power thing.
It's all about the thrill of violating someone's rights. I'm not supposed to have this picture. I went behind, you know, this person doesn't want me to have it. It's that kind of a thrill. It's that power buzz, exactly what you said, Anna.
Yeah, look, I got pulled over by a cop last week. I talked about the situation for our members only.
I'm sure he was a gentleman.
I mean, look, that experience made me realize a lot of things. First of all,
you're white. You're white. You're well dressed.
Right.
And you're in a nice car.
It was during
you're
work
in a
hours.
business area. He knows you working.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not going to retell the entire story. If you're a member, go ahead and watch the post-game show. I get very detailed about it. But I broke the law. I made a U-turn. Right. He pulls me over, and I'm like, I deserve a ticket. Give me a ticket. First thing he told me was, "Why are you laughing?" When I was not laughing at all.
So he comes walk up to your car.
He walks up and he's like, "What's so funny? Why are you laughing?" Right. And I think that was a way of trying to provoke like some sort of aggressive response, right? Because once you do that, then I'm fair game, right?
Yeah.
I'm resisting arrest, I'm being unruly, whatever it is, disturbing the peace. Who knows what they're going to say? But consider this. I was the most compliant person on the planet because I just wanted to get my ticket and be on my way.
Right.
I'm not going to fight with the cop. I did something wrong. I did something illegal. I was so compliant, and I had 3 other witnesses in the car with me, right? You know what he did? He went back to his motorcycle, and a minute later, he told me to step out of the vehicle and talk to him outside. And the more I think about it, the more I realize he did that because he's a pervy son of a bitch, right? And he wanted to get a good look at me, and he asked me questions like, when was the last time you deserved a ticket?
What?
What does that mean?
What?
When was the last time you deserved a ticket?
Did he have a paddle in his hand and a schoolgirl outfit?
But that experience made me realize that this is not an isolated incident. There are people out there that are drunk off their power. It goes beyond the excessive force. It's just, I don't know, it's fucking disgusting.
And that's the thing, because you think, like, Monday morning quarterback, like, well, I wouldn't have gotten out of the car, right? Or this woman, like, I think I might, at the first time, go, I'm sorry, but why do you need my phone? And if he said, give me the phone, you're under arrest, I go, yes, sir. I think I actually have an iPod, too, if you want that. You're not in a position to be made to feel like you have any rights in that situation.
And in that moment, I didn't question whether or not it was legal for him to ask me to step out of the vehicle. I just thought to myself, of course I have to do it. I don't want to get arrested, right?
Right.
And it was just a really creepy encounter.
Why did he want you to step out of the vehicle?
There was absolutely no reason. There was no reason for him to have me step out of the vehicle. And I immediately burst into tears because I thought, I was calm up until that moment. When he told me to step out of the car, I'm like, what is he going to do?
He took it to another level.
He did, yeah. I'm like, is he going to search the car?
Yeah.
Not that I'm hiding anything, but I felt like a criminal in that moment. Yeah. And all I did was an illegal U-turn.
So you start crying, what happens?
He fucking loved it.
Oh.
I was out there talking to him for 10, 15 minutes. At least that's what it felt like. And maybe it wasn't that long. But question after question, he didn't stop until he found out what I do for a living. And he asked me specifically, verbatim, what are you going to report on this incident today? And I said, I don't report on my personal life. I kind of lied. And then his last question to me was, are you famous? And I said, a little bit. And then he closed his citation book.
So did you get a ticket?
He knew what he was doing was wrong. And if I was going to report about it, and if I had his badge number, if I had his name, and I exposed him like that, hey, you know what? In his mind, he was probably thinking, I do this all the time, and I never get caught, but I might get caught with this one, so I better let her go.
And
He didn't give you the U-turn ticket?
Nothing.
And so you don't think that his cop friends, and this has always been my point of view, so his cop friends don't know he's that kind of an asshole? Of course they do. They do. Of course they do. He went, after he pulled you over, he went to Starbucks, he met his other cop friends, and he told them about it. Oh, she was sexy, and I got her out of the car. She starts crying like a... And they're laughing about it. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is, of course.
And just when I was about to write her a ticket, I realized, oh my God, my name and badge number are going to be on there, so I just let her go.
And his friends aren't going to turn him in. His friends aren't going to tell him, stop doing that shit. That's just who they are. Okay, not that we, I often say things about, they say the most violent cops are the ones who serve in the military and then come back because they're taught to dehumanize other people and to see threat around because they really are in life-threatening situations 24/7 when they're in the real military. And so I would be against having those guys be cops. I'm not against the military.
Right.
I think we need those guys in the military. We can't have a bunch of Phil Donahues fighting our wars for us, right? So we need those guys. There's a place for those guys. And we need cops. We definitely need cops. But what I'm saying is we need to change our attitude about the cops. We need to not give them carte blanche. We need to not take their word over as suspects when there's no other evidence. So that's just what I'm talking about. We need to understand what the policing culture is in America, and we need to stop giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want. That's what I'm saying.
And I just have 2 really quick yes or no questions for Anna.
Yeah.
Did you feel protected?
No.
Did you feel served?
No.
Okay.
Right.
false advertising.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to skip ahead to Melissa Harris Perry.
Let's do it.
All right. Recently, Melissa Harris Perry was talking about the nature of online harassment and how she feels as though she is a victim of one. Now, when I originally read this headline, I thought, all right, come on, you are a public figure, of course you're going to get online harassment. But then she said something that kind of struck a nerve with me, and I wanted to know what you guys think about it. Let me read you her quote. "I'm at a point where I don't retweet anything that I really like because I fear that I would send all my haters, all of the harassment that comes to me, over to some person who doesn't deserve it." She also says, "It's literally quieting whatever little digital voice I would have otherwise had." So I think that she says something really interesting about Twitter specifically, because the online harassment is to be expected, right? So if you have YouTube videos up there, of course you're going to get really negative YouTube comments. It's just part of the game. But with something like Twitter, you have to deal with both sides of the coin. On one side, it's great. You get to interact with people that have constructive criticism, people that have good feedback for the show, people who, want to give you love and support, whatever. And then on the other side, you deal with people that are abusive and they're hateful. And when I think about my own behavior, I actually don't like Twitter. I hate Twitter. I have a Twitter account because I feel obligated to have one, right? But I feel as though it is a direct connection between me and the worst people on the planet.
Yes.
And so I try not to check it.
Yeah. Well, in a teeny tiny baby version of that, I actually just disabled having the tweets be sent to me like texts. Because, those can be really nice and they can also be super brutal. And it finally dawned on me after like over a year, wait, these strangers that I don't know that are telling me what an asshole I am and what a stupid bitch I am, it's like getting a text from my mom or getting a text from my friend. That shouldn't show up on my text in my personal life.
I can't believe you even enabled that feature. That sounds disastrous.
Someone did that for me right when it started. I was like, oh, that's cool. What could possibly go wrong?
No. I mean, it's just... And it's one thing if you get, a little bit of hate every day, just a little bit, right? But it's like a slow trickle throughout the day. You wake up in the morning, you check your Twitter account, and it's like the biggest crazy people on the planet.
Well, and it does something to your psyche. I know we talk about this a lot because it matters to us and we deal with it every day. But I agree when you said that it's not even about her at that point. It's about her supporters now that she feels like she has to protect. And so it's like, well, what's the point? You can't interact with people. You can't give people props and retweet them and say, hey, good point, whatever. So, yeah, maybe Twitter's dead. I mean, maybe organize the occasional Arab Spring and then we all move on.
Maybe. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, no, I like Twitter. Again, as a comedian for 25 years, I'm used to people saying mean shit to me right in my face. And so when it's online, it's cute. It's adorable, right? Like, oh, ouchie. And you just block them. You block them, get rid of them, block, get rid. And so her saying that, she's in the business of journalism. And somebody much smarter than me once said that journalism is when you're reporting something that someone doesn't want you to say. And if you're not pissing off someone with your journalism, you're not doing it right. So here's a woman afraid. I mean, your whole job is to piss off people. So you're not pissing off people and you're not doing your job. So that's, you know what I mean? Like,
I guess it all depends on...
You're a professional pisser-offer.
Well, and it depends on what they're attacking her for.
Exactly. It depends on, first of all, your perception of what your role is in media, right? So that has something to do with it. But also what she gets attacked for. So for instance, the thing that drives me crazy is when there is a topic that is well-researched, right? Like, I've spent the entire day reading about it, cross-checking references, doing whatever I can to make sure that what I say is 100% accurate. And then the way YouTube is set up, I don't know why they did this. They did this to filter out the trolls, but now they've actually created like a great platform for trolls.
Yes.
There'll be like one person who completely makes something up about the story that's not true at all, and it'll get so many replies that it goes to the top of the comment section. So people will read that and they'll be like, wait, is what Anna's reporting, is Anna's reporting accurate? And it's like, yes, don't believe this guy.
And you, and because it's your page and your comments underneath, you gave them a stage.
Yes.
Essentially, which is not fair.
I know. It drives me insane.
Yeah, that's a real shitty thing that YouTube did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea why they feel a need to do that.
This was literally their effort at, drowning out the noise. But in an effort of doing so, they actually made the trolls more visible.
Yeah, you're amping up the troll. You're putting them at the tippy top of the list, dumb fuck. And they don't know this already? Of course they already know this, and they haven't fixed it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody has to be upset about that. It's not just you. It's not just anybody who puts a goddamn video up. The top comment's always a negative fucking thing.
Well, and then again, now we've talked about it a little bit on the other side of this, I think, because we don't have any specific examples of how she's been harassed.
Right.
So, depending on what it is, I mean, I'm not someone who, came out of the womb with the buffalo hide thick skin, but you learn to have it, and you learn to stop letting people, like Dave Rubin once said, I don't argue with eggs.
Right.
Like the little anonymous twit.
Ha!
I feel the same way. I appreciate if you like me and I appreciate if you hate me, but it doesn't change me either way because I don't know you. I don't owe you anything ultimately.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So it depends what they said to her because at this point it is like, is it that bad? And if it's that bad, then maybe you get Jimmy's buddies involved. Maybe you get the cops involved. And if it's harassment, if it's stalking, if it's threats, that goes to another level. But if it's not, fuck them.
Let me give you some stats on that, by the way. Pew Research, and by the way, one quick comment on blocking. I feel like every time I block someone, they've won in some way.
No.
Like they've gotten to me to a point where I've actually taken action against them. And that's the reason why I don't like blocking unless it's like I have no choice. I have to do it, right?
I think you're making a mistake there. You're just setting yourself up for more shit. Block, 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 and you never think about it again. You never have to think about that person again, ever.
Yeah, that's
it's
a good
great.
point. All right, so Pew Research actually did a study on online harassment. They had respondents kind of answer survey questions, and here's what they found. 40% of Pew participants said they have experienced harassment on the internet in the form of offensive name-calling, stalking, sexual harassment, physical threats, embarrassment, and sustained harassment. But if you want to get a little more specific about the more severe harassment that takes place online, 26% of young women surveyed reported being stalked online, while 25% said that they had been sexually harassed on the internet.
Duh.
Yeah.
Only 25?
I know, that was actually kind of surprising.
Low.
Yeah, very.
It does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you should if you're that sick of Twitter, you should do what Ann Coulter did. She went on Twitter, which is a little more. That's right for her. It's more.
That was right for her. I'm not so sure if it's right for me. All right, guys, let's take our first break. When we come back, a segment on offensive Halloween costumes. I mean, you're going to want to see this. You liked that, didn't you?
All right. If you want the whole show, you like it even more, go to TYTnetwork.com. Go under member options, and you can get the whole show anytime you like.